Rejected and Arita Aranadada. The adoption station floated above the gray planet like a cold metal cage. Ships arrived and left every hour, carrying families, workers, and hope inside the station. Long halls echoed with footsteps and quiet announcements. At the far end of one hall, a small alien girl sat alone on a bench. Her name was Lyra. She was small for her age. With soft silver skin and wide dark eyes, a thin blanket rested on her shoulders and a small bag sat at her feet. Tied around her wrist was a paper tag bent and worn. The word printed on it had been stamped many times: rejected. Lyra had learned the meaning of that word without anyone explaining it. Rejected meant waiting again. Rejected meant packing her bag again. Rejected meant being sent back. A station worker walked toward her holding a data pad. His face showed no anger, no kindness, only routine. He stopped in front of Lyra and spoke without emotion. "The review is complete. You will be returned to holding until the next request." Lyra nodded slowly. She did not ask why. She had stopped asking after the third rejection. Questions only made the waiting hurt more. As she followed the worker down the hall, Lyra watched other children leave with families. Some held hands, some were carried. Some laughed loudly. Each sound felt distant, like it belonged to another world. Lyra remembered the first family who had looked at her file. They smiled at first, then their faces changed when they read her species name. They whispered to each other, "Too unknown, too risky, better not." The second family had lasted longer. They even spoke to her, asked her favorite color, asked if she liked stars, but in the end, they shook their heads. "We cannot take that chance," they said, by the fifth rejection. Lyra stopped smiling. By the 10th, she stopped speaking unless spoken to. Each return made her feel smaller, lighter, like she might disappear if no one held her in place. The holding area was quiet, filled with children waiting for decisions they could not control. Lyra sat in her usual corner and hugged her bag. Inside it were only three things: a small stone from her homeworld, a folded blanket, and the last message her mother had recorded before sending her away. The message played softly in her memory: "Be brave, live." Hours passed. A loud announcement echoed through the station. "Final review, call for subject Lyra, Section C." Lyra stood up, her legs weak. Final review meant last chance. If this failed, she would be sent to Central Holding. Everyone knew what that meant. No families, no requests. Just waiting until no one remembered your name inside the review room. 3 officials waited behind a glass table. Data screens floated in the air, filled with numbers and warnings. One official read aloud: "Species status, adaptive unknown, homeworld lost, guardian status, none." Another official sighed: "We have sent her out too many times. Each return increases risk." The third official looked at Lyra. Then back at the file. "She is quiet, but silence can hide danger." Recommendation returned. The decision was made in seconds. Lyra felt it before it was spoken. Returned. She was escorted back into the main hall. The rejection tag was updated again. Returned again as she stood near the exit gate, waiting for transfer. Someone noticed her. A human man stood near the cargo lane, watching the scene quietly. His name was Daniel Cross, a human cargo pilot between long runs. He had seen war zones, broken planets, and lost colonies. But this moment stayed with him. He watched the small girl stand alone while adults decided her fate like paperwork. He saw the tag on her wrist, rejected again and again. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He remembered old human stories, children sent away. Children feared for what they might become as the station worker guided Lyra toward the transfer gate. Daniel stepped forward. He raised his hand and spoke loudly. "Wait." The worker turned, confused. "This child is scheduled for return." Daniel walked closer and knelt in front of Lyra. "What is your name?" he asked gently. Lyra hesitated, then answered softly, "Lyra." Daniel nodded and stood up, facing the officials. "I will take responsibility for her," he said. The hall went silent. One official stared at him in shock. "You understand the risks. Her species is not fully studied." Daniel nodded without hesitation. I understand the risk of doing nothing. The officials exchanged looks, paperwork began loading. Warnings appeared on the screens. Lyra looked up at Daniel, her eyes wide and unsure. No one had ever stopped the process before. No one had ever chosen her. Daniel looked down and spoke softly. You are not being sent back today for the first time. Lyra felt something new rise inside her chest. Not joy, not happiness, but the smallest spark of hope. A place that did not send her back. The approval lights on the station wall turned from red to soft white. That change meant permission, but it also meant responsibility. Daniel stood still as officials finished the process. His name now tied to Lyra's future. Lyra did not move at first. She waited for someone to say it was a mistake. She waited for the word return to appear again, but it did not. A station worker slowly removed the paper tag from her wrist. The thin band fell into his hand like something already forgotten. You are cleared for transfer with Guardian, he said. Lyra looked at her empty wrist again and again. Unsure how to feel, Daniel knelt beside her and spoke softly. You are coming with me, not for a visit. Not for review, for good. The transport ship was small and old. Built for cargo, not comfort, but to Lyra, it felt larger than any place she had ever been. She sat quietly in the co-pilot's seat, holding her bag close. Every sound of the ship made her flinch. Every system check felt like a countdown to being sent back. Daniel noticed this and adjusted his voice. He explained everything before it happened. This is the engine sound. This is jump space. This shaking is normal. Lyra listened carefully. No one had ever explained things to her before. They usually just told her where to stand. When the ship entered jump space, colors stretched across the view screen. Lyra gasped softly, her eyes wide. Daniel smiled. First time, she nodded, still holding her breath. They arrived at a quiet human settlement on a green and blue world. No large cities, no loud traffic. Just low buildings, open land, and wide sky. The air smelled clean and warm. Lyra stepped off the ship slowly. Her feet touching real ground, she waited for an alarm. None came. This is home, Daniel said. For as long as you want it to be. The first nights were difficult. Lyra slept near the door, fully dressed, bag packed. Any sudden noise made her sit up in fear. Daniel did not force her to change. He simply stayed nearby. He cooked simple meals, nothing fancy, just warm food served at the same time each day. Lyra ate quietly, always watching his face. Waiting for anger, waiting for regret, but it never came. Days passed, then weeks. Lyra began to explore the area. Step by step, she touched plants, watched birds, felt rain without hiding. The world did not reject her one afternoon. A local official arrived to complete final records. She studied Lyra carefully and asked many questions. Does she cause problems? Is she dangerous? Daniel answered calmly. She is a child. The official paused. Then nodded. That was enough. Slowly, news spread. A human had accepted an alien child rejected by everyone else. Some were curious, some were afraid, but many remembered old human history. Lyra began attending learning sessions with other children. At first she sat alone, but one day another child offered her a drawing pad. Lyra hesitated, then accepted, that night. She showed Daniel the drawing. It was simple. 2 figures standing under a wide sky. One small, one tall. Daniel swallowed and smiled. That is us, he said. Lyra nodded months later. The truth about Lyra's species became known. They were not dangerous. They were adaptive. Able to live where others could not. They were survivors. What others had feared was not power. It was change. Human leadership reviewed the case. They did not punish Daniel. They studied his choice. More requests followed. Other rejected children, other forgotten lives. Lyra stood beside Daniel one evening. Watching the sunset, she no longer clutched her bag. It rested forgotten inside the house. She spoke softly, her voice stronger now. You did not send me back. Daniel replied just as softly, I never will. That promise carried weight, not just for one child, but for a species known across the stars. Because the galaxy learned something important. Humans were not perfect. But once they chose you, they did not let go.